And notwithstanding criminal proceedings, and I think that's important to draw a distinction, institutions have internal processes, and they have to, the courts will have to invoke these internal processes, because from what we have heard so far, the court is not looking good. It's not, and it may just be oversights, it could be negligence, it could be deliberate. Mark it as across those boards, and we are hoping that the inquiry that is being put together will unmask it for us to see which of these categories the whole system has fallen into. But for me, it's not looking good. And until they can, once you have those discrepancies, it's going to be very hard, even though it could have happened, that the change could have been done at the police hand, because they have a record of the processes they have followed. You are going to be hard-pressed to say that with the problems that are happened in courts, you can then turn and point your finger at the police force on this occasion. The problem the police have at the moment is that historically, because of the drugs that got lost in the past, there is a taint on the way they deal with drugs. And therefore, that taint is what is actually informing the current position that exists. But the facts, as I understand them,
speaking of that part,
Alex, would you want to agree that there are some politicians involved in this whole thing?
How do you mean?
In what way?
Maybe influencing a big short NDC man, influencing some people to get these things done.
And is there any evidence to show that the person was NDC or...
No.
I love the way Alex is presenting the whole thing. Professionally. Talking about police, you see, all along the president is not mentioned, the party is not mentioned.
Okay, I'll come
no
to that.
politician.
You have landed.
I think, Alex, and I think Mameni's point is this: that when it happened under the NPP,
it was
Konkonte for cocaine. The conclusion then, and the claim then was that the NPP is the Narcotics People's Party.
Let me explain this a little bit.
So can the same be said of the NDC?
No.
Since this happened under the NDC's watch.
I think that you have to accept that there were a series of events that led to government being accused in the past. And the opposition is trying so hard on one incident to begin to equate us as equals. It's not, we are nowhere close. When you have the equivalent of 70 suitcases, those who have traveled know 70 suitcases disappear in an operation which government...
Is it 77 or
77 parcels.
In an operation.
Of cocoa. Wait. I'm
talking
of the weight. The weight.
They were sacks. They have appropriate weight. They have appropriate
suitcases.
What is that? No,
it's
but
more of an exaggeration.
No.
Let me explain.
It was 30 kilograms.
And
I'm using 70 because when we travel, everybody knows that you travel between 20
Alex, let's assume that not everybody travels. So let's work with 30 kilograms.
No, but people, you see, I have to explain it.
In an operation that was undertaken by a political party.
When your 10 comes, correct me. But I'm saying that for the sake of my listeners and viewers, especially those who are abroad and have traveled, you have 77 suitcases. That's what it is.
The weight.
The weight.
Okay.
The weight of it as you travel to. And nobody has found one yet.
Which is 30 kilograms.
That was one. 30 kilograms per suitcase because it was 77 parcels, 30 kilos each.
Okay. So 30 kilograms per parcel.
Per parcel. Disappeared. If they want me to do cocoa sacks or beans, I don't mind. But 77 of them have disappeared. You then had the issue of 2 incidents of drugs, one missing in transit from NACOP to the police station, and the second one where drugs were actually in the vault of the police station and also disappeared. So there are 3 separate major incidents, all back to back, within a short space of time that happened. And that is when government's name was dragged into the incident. That the government must really do something about it because nothing was happening. So they'll have a catalog of incidents that happened under their stewardship that led government to. You have one incident after 3 years. In fact, 3 years in which it is clear that the drug war by this government has been a successful one. People have been arrested. the cost of even drugs on the street now has gone up because of shortage, because a lot of things are not coming in as used to.
People who have been jailed have been released.
I'm not saying that it is perfect.
People who shouldn't be granted bail have been granted bail.
Well, let me say that.
You don't talk about those things too.
No. You said government.
You see,
no.
I was thinking that you want to agree with me that it is high time, on hindsight, that all of us politicians should take ourselves away from these things and talk about strengthening institutions and ensuring as government that these things are working.
Why is
now look at the problem that
Can I land? Why is it that when something becomes extremely difficult, we then assume that it should take the proportions of a national issue as opposed to a government one which is political? I disagree. This is, yes, a national issue, but government is in charge of the institutions that are going to deal with these issues.
So we hold government responsible.
Government should have some responsibility towards it. That is why the Vice President has said that we are not going to leave any stone unturned. And the way you deal with these things actually can demonstrate your commitment towards it. That is why we are trying to get to the bottom of it. So to just assume that, oh, because of this one incident, we are going to absolve the Kufuor government for all the issues that happened under that system. We won't do that. We won't do that.
Nobody said that, but don't exonerate the male government.
Nobody's exonerated us. We have not, and we haven't reached the point of exoneration. Let's see what happens with the inquiry. Let's see whether we are able to bring anybody to book. Okay. Let's see whether we are able to investigate it properly. I just wanted to outline the facts and let people understand what the issues are. I have not exonerated government. We must also give institutional problems or the problems to the institutions that this thing. But we in government then have to take steps to ensure that this does not continue from where it started. But
it seems that it has continued. Because
no. Why do you say it's continued?
Because if this happened in 2009, it was the NDC in power.
Let's put it this way. The drugs that have been dealt with in our period, arrested in our period, we haven't had this problem yet. So let's wait for it to come. These drugs were arrested in 2008.
Oh. So your point is that because it was arrested in 2008 and got lost in 2009...
We are saying that.
There is evidence that NCP arrested drugs.
I'm not saying that you didn't. What I'm trying, this one business you are talking about, trying to equate. And that is where I'm saying that if you go down that road, you get into all sorts of absurd arguments, which I can do, which I have just done. So you can't say in the one breath that, look, let's look at this thing holistically. And then at the end of your submission, you then decide to go propaganda. Fine. Anybody can do cheap propaganda. But at the end of the day, my point is that nobody should assume that what happened over a period of 20, 30 years is going to be solved in 3. What I expected my colleague to be saying is that, look, okay, we are drawing the line in the sand. If this has happened, we will see. Let's see whether any more are going to come up. If any more come up, we will then jump on government and say, government, you are the same. But you are so hasty.
Alex,
you have one incident and you are rushing
Alex, this is a very bad thing to read. Okay, so we are not going to wait for it to happen again.
We are not saying
Put your act together, and let's make sure that doesn't happen again.
All right.
That is where we are.
Point noted. Let's hear Kuku. So government is not absolving itself. It's waiting to see the outcome.
I'll be honest with you, and I'll be very blunt. I'm disappointed by what has happened. You know.
What has happened where?
Yeah, right now.
Why
indeed, some aspects of Mr. Agyeman Menu's submission, I was disappointed with. The same with Alex.
Which aspects are you disappointed?
The obvious, ugly politicization of the issue. The avoidance of the inability, and I'm not sure I'm using the right word, so they may forgive me, to recognize this thing as a systemic institutional problem that cuts across party, governments, and their era of
speak up a bit.
Reign. It's so obvious. Indeed, this approach is the best approach, the best insurance for the drug dealers, because you won't solve the problem. And that's what we've been doing. The worst of it occurred in the last 2-3 years. I mean, the ugly politicization towards the election 2008. And if you take your time and analyze, you'll be so irritated by the crudity that informed some of the propaganda that went on. And I'm so tempted to join. I'm trying to resist the temptation because it would distort
the facts.
What we are doing.
So
but I think, to be fair to us, I think the two of us recognize the fact that it is a national issue. It is an institutional issue.
They still want to
but what I was trying to tell Alex was the fact that we should all begin to stop those things. But before we do, we will get them first.
You get
First of all, let me establish certain facts.
Okay, sure.
Even though the Georgina Wood Committee ended up agreeing that 77 parcels came into this country. And don't forget, I think one parcel was left on board, which was sent to NACOP. 5 kilos of which got subsequently missing. Strictly speaking, based on the details, and again, the Court of Appeal judgment, if you recall, the one that freed Tagore, Issa, and Issa, it came out that there was no evidence of the fact that 77 parcels indeed arrived. So the Court of Appeal's ruling or judgment was contrary to the finding of the Georgina Wood Committee. And at the Georgina Wood Committee level, the proceedings, you will realize there was the NACOP official, Ben Indego, who said that the 77 parcel thing was based on his assumption, based on the investigations that he conducted because of what Ahin, one of the suspects, said, and this. So he put it together and assumed safely that the parcels that had come were 77. That 77 figure was not part of what the intelligence gave to Ghana.
What did the intelligence give?
They just said cocaine was coming.
Okay.
They didn't give a quantity. Okay. They couldn't have, as you know. So that